All right, we got some bands. Well, good morning. My name is Stephanie. I'm on the team here at Neighborhood, and so glad that you're with us today for the brand new teaching series we are starting called Sounds of Summer. We're going to walk through the biblical book of Psalms. And if you don't know Psalms, if you hold a Bible and just let it kind of fall open, it's located kind of right in the middle. You'll probably land somewhere in Psalms. And it's a collection of about 150 ancient songs. So to add a fun twist, we're going to partner some of these ancient songs with some of our modern classics. And what we think that you'll notice is that the themes and the questions in these ancient songs are the same ones that our modern musicians are asking as well. And what's so amazing about these ancient songs is that though they were written by various people hundreds of years ago, half a world away, their lyrics are still timeless because they express some of our deepest emotions, things like joy and gratitude and hope, but also confusion, anger, fear, doubt, and grief. The Psalms ends up being like a mixtape of the human experience. And these songs are actually prayers. They were written to give God's people the words to say when they didn't have any words. So if you don't know how to pray or you don't know what to say, Psalms is actually a really good place to start because the poetry and the insight in these songs make them worth reading over and over and over again. So this summer, we're going to listen to that ancient playlist, and we hope that the messages get recorded in your heart and your mind, and that they help you with whatever life is throwing at you right now. So before we get into our modern and ancient combo for today, I want to give you a little bit of a background on the whole book of Psalms. So like I said, Psalms was written by various people, but then it was collected together by someone or someones that put all these songs together like a greatest hits of all time collection. And 73 of the 150, so about half of these songs, are connected to King David. And if you don't know King David, he's one of Israel's greatest kings, and he has a really interesting life story. Because David wasn't born into royalty, quite the opposite. That he was the youngest son in his family, and he was a poor shepherd. And his older brothers, when David's about a teenager, go to war with Israel's army, and he ends up delivering them lunch one day and volunteers to fight this enemy soldier that's 9 feet tall, this giant named Goliath. And God helps David defeat Goliath, and so David becomes famous. And the king brings him into his court to be a court musician. He was a poet and a harp player. And also, God had chosen David to be the next king. God sent a prophet to anoint David to be the next king, but when the current king finds out about that, he tries to kill David. So David is on the run for about a decade, hiding for his life. But eventually, King Saul dies, and David does become king. And while he's king, he does some amazing things, but also has some royal screw-ups, including an affair that rips his family apart. See, David's life was full of ups and downs and twists and turns and unexpected things. Times when he felt rescued by God and times when he felt abandoned by God. And if you read the Psalms, especially those songs that were written by David, you see every emotion expressed. Every emotion. The authors of these songs do not hold back. They are raw and authentic and vulnerable. And for the first half of the book, most of the songs are songs of lament. And lament is not a word we normally use, but lament simply means a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. These songs express pain and anger and confusion. And yet, that's okay. Because they are watching horrible things happen around them, or horrible things happen to them, and they are expressing all of that anger, confusion, and doubt. And they ask God the hard questions like, why? Why would you allow this? Why are you allowing me to suffer? Why do you allow so much suffering in the world? If you say you love us, then why don't you do something? I mean, some of the songs even demand that God do something. They don't hold back. And there are a lot of songs of lament in the book of Psalms, which I find kind of comforting because it means that it's okay to talk like that. It's okay to talk to God like that. that it's okay and even an appropriate response to the evil and the tragedy that we see in our world. See, Psalms doesn't run from the darkness. It dives head on into it and asks hard questions. And some of the songs give us answers to those questions, and some of them are just left hanging. But there are another group of songs that are called songs of praise. There's songs of lament, and then there's songs of praise. And the songs of praise highlight what's good in the world. They express joy and hope and faith. They talk about the amazing things that God has done in people's lives, and they thank him for it. And as you read through the book of Psalms, what you'll notice is at the beginning, there's lots of songs of lament, only a few of praise. But as you go along, there's more and more songs of praise and less of lament. And this shift is profound, because I think it tells us about what prayer does in our lives. The Psalms teaches us not to ignore the pain that's happening, but also not to let it determine the meaning of our lives. That it's okay to express our raw emotions and also to express faith and hope that God has not abandoned us, that he will be faithful and he can even bring us hope in hard times. So, lament and praise, faith and hope. This is what the book of Psalms is all about. So whether you're feeling grateful this morning, or you're feeling doubtful, or joyful, or full of grief, or hopeful, or hopeless, wherever you're at, I think Psalms is a good place for all of us to start. So let's dive into our first song and psalm mashup for today. It's between Stairway of Heaven and Psalm number 4. In Psalm 4, at its core, the theme is about finding joy and hope even in hard times. And it's associated with King David when he was hiding in a cave from his own son who was trying to take his throne. So imagine that, betrayed by your own son, running for your life. And as you can imagine, it starts out as lament. Things are not the way they're supposed to be, but it ends in praise. And Psalm 4 isn't very long, so I want to just read it to you. And we don't have the music, so I can't sing it, but that's good because I'm not as good as David. So this is Psalm number 4. Answer me when I call to you, my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. How long will you people turn my glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. When you are on your beds, search your hearts and be silent. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. And many, Lord, are asking, who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us. Fill my heart with joy. When there grain and new wine abound, in peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. See, the first few lines in this poem, in this song, talk about feeling lonely, feeling abandoned by God, mocked by people, and all David sees are people chasing after delusions, these things that won't satisfy them. But then he remembers that God hears him. And with all the noise that's going on in his life, he's almost preaching to himself, saying, don't give up, don't give in. Search my heart, be silent. That somewhere in there, I know that I can trust God. Somewhere in there, I still have hope. And he ends with this line, how do we get prosperous? People are asking, how do we get rich? How do we get what we want? And David's answer is, God, let your face shine on me. Fill me with joy that lasts. And David says, only God can bring me joy that doesn't go away and can offer me peace and even security, safety, purpose, that only God can do that. Joy, peace, purpose. And isn't that what everybody wants? I mean, isn't that what we all want? To be able to lie down at night like David did, not to worry about tomorrow, not to regret today, but simply feel peace and joy and security. Like, how do we get that? It sounds pretty great. Strangely enough, that's the exact same question as the rock anthem, Stairway to Heaven. But how do we get to this heaven on earth? How do we get there? And strangely enough, this song correlates with what David is saying. Now, if you've never heard this song before the little bit we played this morning, you're in good company, because I had never listened to this song all the way through until a few weeks ago when I was assigned this teaching. And the first time that I listened to it, I hated it. I'm sorry if you love this song. I just did not get it. And I know it's famous, and I've been told the music is really hard, but I was like, I just don't like it. And so I listened to it over and over and over again, and all I could think of, the lyrics, they make no sense. Like, how am I supposed to do anything with this? How do I connect this to Psalms? Like, who picked this song? I found out it was Jordan, so you can blame him. And I was like, what do I do with this? This song is depressing, it's confusing, it's so long, it's like 10 minutes. And I had to listen to it over and over again. However, the fact that it made no sense to me and was kind of depressing actually reminded me a lot of Psalms. Because the first time that you read some of these Psalms, they don't make sense. They're confusing, they're poetic, they're cryptic, they're mysterious. That if you read a Psalm and you're like, I don't get it, it's not because you're stupid. That's just normal. It takes sometimes reading it over and over again to understand it. And sometimes you need somebody else who has studied this to explain it to you. All of us that teach up here use books and podcasts and sermons from other pastors to help us understand the Bible too. That's just normal. Sometimes you need somebody else to explain it when it just doesn't make sense. So that's what I decided to do with Stairway to Heaven. So I Googled, what do the lyrics of Stairway to Heaven mean? And the first thing that popped up was that if you play it backwards on a vinyl record player, there's a line in there that says, "My sweet Satan." I was like, oh my gosh, what did Jordan get me into? What is this? So I went down that rabbit trail for a while, figuring out, what is this conspiracy? Found out that there's this whole thing, this whole controversy about backmasking, that somehow the band had encoded these secret messages that if you play it backwards, you hear it, but if you don't, it's going to brainwash people to follow Satan. So I dug a little deeper. I was like, what is this? Figuring out it was a conspiracy. Found videos of the band members themselves talking about it, and none of them worship Satan. And in fact, years later, they said this about the controversy: it's hard enough writing the music one way around, let alone backward. There is no secret message in there. So I dug a little deeper, and I found videos of Robert Plant, the guy that wrote the lyrics, talking about them. And in fact, he was questioned a lot about what do these lyrics mean? And he never really explained it. In fact, years later about the song, he even said this. He said, depending on what day it is, I still interpret the song a different way, and I wrote the lyrics. I was like, great. So nobody knows what they mean, even the author. Like, they're abstract, they're mysterious, there's multiple interpretations. So I'm just gonna give you my best guess at what I think these lyrics mean. So in case you don't know them by heart, I want to give you a sample of them. And this is a very long song. So here's just a few lines from this song. It starts like this. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. And when she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. And then in the middle of the song, it changes. And it starts to be like the singer's on this search for something. And we read this, that my spirit is crying for leaving. And yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. And at the end, there's this epic rock anthem. It seems like the singer has found something of value. The tune will come to you at last, and when all are one and one is all, to be a rock and not to roll. And then it ends with this eerie a cappella line. And she's buying a stairway to heaven. And I listened to this song, I don't know how many times, read tons of commentaries online, But the general consensus seems to be that this song is about a search for meaning and joy and purpose, this search for heaven on earth. And that there's two paths that everyone gets to choose from. There's two paths that you can go on. And one of them is this path of glitter, this path of chasing gold, chasing money, chasing prosperity. That it promises if we just get more. If we get more for me, then somehow it will lead us to this heaven. If I just get more, that is the way we get to heaven. But the lyrics say at the end of that road, it's a dead end. The doors are all closed, that it doesn't work. So we end up in this constant loop of trying to get more and never actually getting to the end. That it's this dead end. But there's a second path. And the lyrics talk about being kind of this mysterious thing. And they don't really describe what that path looks like, just that there must be another way. There must be something worth pursuing more than money. And at the end of that second path, there's got to be something of true value. A rock that doesn't roll. Something solid, something lasting. And whatever path you choose, it'll determine where you end up. And sadly, the woman from the very beginning of the song, at the end of the song, is still on that first path. She's still trying to buy her way there, to buy her way to happiness and peace and purpose. So the song ends tragically. And the one part of the song that Robert Plant would explain was that at its core, the song is about a woman getting everything she wants and giving nothing back. See, when I finally understood the meaning of this song, I started to see the parallels with Psalm 4. And I started to appreciate the deep genius of the Led Zeppelin band. Because I think they hit on the core of something that's true about the human experience. See, both this song and the psalm start out in lament. They start out saying things are not the way they are supposed to be. Both people start out in pain. The woman is trying to escape that pain. She's trying to find a stairway, somewhere to get out of this, to escape the pain that she is in. And David, too, is trying to escape the pain that he's in, and he's asking God to get him out of this. They want to escape the pain. They want to get to joy and peace, security. They want that. And I don't think that's a bad thing to want. I think that's what all of us crave. We all need safety. We all want to have a life that has joy, that's lasting. We want to have a good life that has fulfillment and purpose. These are not bad things to want. And in fact, I think every choice that we make, whether we're conscious of it or not, I think we're choosing the option that we think will get us to that goal. But what Robert Plant and King David both agree on is that sometimes we get deceived. That both paths promise to get us there, to get us to that joy, peace, purpose, but only one path actually leads there. See, that first path promises that if you just get more, then you will finally feel that peace or that happiness. And so all you need is that new phone. Once you get that new phone or that new house or that new car, then life will be good. If you just get that better job or that better person in your life, or maybe that better thing, then you will finally be happy. If you get an alarm system or a gate, then you will feel at peace. You'll be able to lie down at night, feel okay. And there's something true about that. That money can get you some of those things. And you need money. Everybody needs money to buy food, housing, etc. That money gives you some of those things. But the illusion part of it is that you'll never have enough money to feel happy all the time. You'll never have enough money to protect you from everything. The money runs out. And you'll never have enough money to protect you from things like cancer or depression, loneliness, grief. If only money could do that, that'd be great. If only money could protect you from pain. But it's an illusion. And it's this endless pursuit of something that we just can't get. I think of it actually like the claw game at Chuck E. Cheese. I took my girls, they're 2 and 4, I took them there for the first time this summer, and as soon as we walk in, there's this giant glass box filled with stuffed animals, like stuffy toys, their most favorite thing in the whole world. So they both run up to the glass, press their faces against it, and then try to figure out how you open this box so you can play with the toys. I explained to Finley, my 4-year-old, like, oh, you can't open the box. You have to swipe these tokens and move this thing, and then this giant claw comes, and if you do it just right, it'll grab the thing that you want, and then you get to take it home. So she wanted to try a couple times, and she's 4, so she failed every single time, and eventually gave up, and we did other things. But all I could think of was, this is what that path of more is like, where you can see the thing that you want. It's just out of reach. And we can try and try and try, and sometimes we even get really close. Sometimes that claw even touches the thing that you want, and then it snaps back, and you have to start all over again. And even if you get that thing that you want, sometimes we waste so much time and energy on money trying to get that thing, and then when we get it, it ends up feeling empty. And we have to start all over again. See, at best, the path of more can distract us from pain, but it doesn't actually offer us an escape from it. It's just this endless loop of always needing more and never actually getting what we want. And what David and Robert Plant agree on is that first path doesn't work. That you can't buy your way to these things that we all want. So, if we can't buy our way there, then how do we get there? And Robert Plant doesn't really describe how. And where he leaves off, I think, is where David picks up. Because this is where the song and the psalm diverge. See, David has an answer for that. He says, many, Lord, are asking, how do we get prosperous? How do we get what we want? How do we get rich? And David's answer is, only God can fill me with that joy. Only God can fill me. Basically saying, forget that first path. It doesn't work. I've been there, done that, and it doesn't work. Instead, only God can fill me with that. And remember, David is writing this while hiding in a cave, while his life and his family are in shambles. Things are not going well. And yet, he says that he can feel joy and peace and safety because God has not abandoned him. See, I think David knew better than most people that money and prosperity, reputation, power, all of those things that promise to get us to happiness and peace and fulfillment, all of that can be ripped away. That they're just not enough, and they're not secure, and they're not lasting. And when everything in his life was ripped away, that God was still there. That God did not abandon him. And in fact, he said, I can feel joy, peace, safety, even in the midst of what I'm experiencing. That all of that is possible. See, I think that this psalm offers us a way to that second path. See, I think unlike what Robert Plant describes, that second path is not a secret, that it's not mysterious. In fact, the authors of Scripture, throughout the Psalms, throughout every book in the Bible, talk about that second path. That it's not this secret, God's not hiding the stairway to heaven from us. That in fact, Jesus came to earth to make that path abundantly clear. Jesus said stuff like this, I'm the way. I'm that way. I am the truth. I am the life. And that I've come so they may have life and have it to the full, to have a full life. And over again, he said, follow me, follow me. Do what you see me doing. That's how you get to this life that is the fullest possible. Do what I do. See, that second path isn't a secret. It's just not what we expect it to be. See, Jesus said, instead of pursuing more and more and more and never feeling full, give more and more of yourself away and you will never feel empty. which sounds backward. It sounds like a trick, like this can't possibly work. Because it's the exact opposite of what we hear and see every day. It's the exact opposite of the first path. Because if I give money away, then I will have less money. So how does that make me feel secure? If I give my time and my energy away to somebody else, I can see how that would help them, but how is that supposed to help me? The math doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. How is having less supposed to make me feel like I have more? Well, one of my favorite things to do is go hiking in the mountains. And there's a trail near here that I love called the Lakes Trail. And it's a hard hike. It's like 4 miles up. But when you get to the top, there's these 3 beautiful mountain lakes. And they're so peaceful and so serene, and the views are amazing that it makes the whole climb worth it. And a few years ago, I took a group of college interns up on that hike. And at the beginning, they were all energetic and excited, and they start running up the hill. But pretty soon, we start to hit some switchbacks. But we are climbing, and they are huffing and puffing. And I know that some of them wanted to turn back because it's a hard hike. And we just kept telling them, it's okay. Take a break. Go one step at a time. Like, it's going to be worth it. Just keep going. And they all had different levels of athleticism, but at the end, they all made it. And we had this really fun day of swimming in the lake and laying out on the rocks in the sun. It was amazing. And at the end, they were all proud of themselves that they made it. See, if you're going to go on a hard hike, it helps to go with a guide that's been to the destination before. That when it gets hard, they can tell you it's worth it. It is worth the pain, it's worth the sacrifice, and you won't regret it at the end. You'll be glad you took the hard road. See, over and over again, throughout the Psalms, throughout all of Scripture, you will hear the authors all agree. Following God, following Jesus, that path is hard. They do not sugarcoat it. They make it very explicit. This is hard. Doing what Jesus did, self-sacrificial love for other people, that's hard. They don't say it's easy. But they also say that it's worth it. They don't regret choosing the hard road. See, in fact, they say that when we give more of ourselves away, that in fact that path leads to a destination where we want to go. That if I give more of me away, then that path leads to a better destination than the first one. And every author of Scripture agrees on that. They've lived it. They've been to the destination, and they can tell us it's worth it. And they didn't regret it. And I know this to be true, not just because we've read it, but because I've seen it. I've watched people walk down that harder road, and at the end of it, they don't regret it. I'll give you one example. There's a couple in our church a few years ago, sold their house and gave a big chunk of the profits to the church and said, do something to help our city. They didn't have an agenda. They just said, here you go. Do whatever will help people in our city. And at that moment, we were in the midst of creating a program to help our former Houston school kids that are now in high school to apply for college or trade school or whatever we're going to do. But we didn't know how we were going to pay for it. And because of their generosity at just the right time, we were able to launch Neighborhood Degree. And because of them and about 200 of you who volunteered with us or been mentors or donors, in the last 4 years, we've been able to help 45 students start their college journey. And we have another 20 or so in the pipeline. And in June, we had our first 2 graduates with degrees. And if you ask this couple, was it worth it? Like, do you regret giving that money? I doubt they would tell you, yeah, man, I wish we had bought a jet ski. I just don't think they would say that. If you ask them, they'd say something like, yeah. I mean, seeing the impact this has made, watching those 2 girls in a cap and gown, getting a degree, knowing their life trajectory is so much more open. The possibilities, the impact that's going to have on them, their family, their future children or grandchildren, the ripple effect of all of these students on our city. I mean, what could I buy that would make me feel that good? Nothing. And if you asked our mentors, do you regret it? Like, that's time, energy. I mean, they're mentoring teenagers, all the headaches, awkward conversations. Like, was it worth it? This is what some of them have said. They said, I was worried about the amount of time it would take to be a mentor, but it really wasn't that much, only 3 hours a month. And what I got to see these kids do, to see their lives changing direction, it was so worth it. The math doesn't make sense. Least amount of effort, greatest reward. If you ask them if it was easy, they'll tell you no. Was it all rainbows and unicorns all the time? No, they were mentoring teenagers. It's not pretty. But if you ask them, was it worth it? They all have busy lives, kids, jobs, grandkids, life to balance, all of that going on in their own world. Was it worth the sacrifice? Was it worth the effort? I think they would tell you it's not easy, but it was easier than they thought, and then it was worth it. See, that second path is hard. It does take effort. Following Jesus isn't the easiest thing you can do. But that should be abundantly clear, because the symbol of our faith is literally a cross, which is a symbol of pain and sacrifice and death. That Jesus wasn't offering us an escape from pain. Jesus wasn't offering us a pain-free life. What he did offer is that he would embrace us in our pain. Not an escape from it, but to embrace us in our pain and help us find a way out of it. And that way out, he said, is follow me. Follow me, do what I did. This is how you find your way out of that pain. See, what Jesus did offer us is that somehow on this second path, that our pain and the world's pain both get healed at the same time. And somehow God is able to take our pain and the world's pain and heal them both at the same time. And that what he offers us is not a stairway to heaven, but a way to bring heaven to earth. Not just for other people, but for us too. That this is how we experience heaven on earth. That this is what he was offering us. That our pain, the world's pain, that God has a plan for both, and it's the same plan. So I wonder, if you took an honest look at your life and you just evaluated, like, what path are you on? Maybe what path do you want to be on? Because we all have that choice. And the way of Jesus is not the easy path, but it does offer a better destination. And that's why our church has chosen to be for Visalia, to be for our city, to give ourselves away as much as possible. Because we really think it is the only path that leads to lasting joy, fulfillment, purpose. That it is the only thing that will lead to the life that we want. And it's for us and for our city. I mean, that's why we do things like 4 projects every month to help people in our city. That's why we adopted Houston School 17 years ago. That's why we started our own nonprofit, Neighborhood Degree. That's why we're building a community center next to Houston. These things are not easy or cheap. This is not the easy path, but we do think it's worth it. And at the end, we won't regret it. It'll be worth it for us. It'll be worth it also for our city. And we want you to be part of it. Not because you need to feel guilty and somehow you have to do something, but honestly because this is how we get to the things that we want. We think that it actually will make your world and the world better at the same time. See, I think God has this epic plan for your life. And this second path leads to a destination that you don't even think is possible. But he does. And he's got that plan. And if you choose it, it will cost you something. It'll cost you time, energy, money. It'll cost you something. But I think what you'll find is that at the end, you don't regret it. You don't regret it. In fact, I think you'll find that it fills you up more than you expected it to. And for each of us, that path is going to look different. God's wired all of us differently. We have different life experiences that have shaped us. We're all at different seasons of life where you can give more or less. Everybody's path is going to look different. But everyone, all of us have that choice of which path we want to be on and whether we're taking a step forward. So what does that step forward look like for you? What's a step on that path? Whichever one you choose, what does that look like? Well, before we leave, I want to give you one step. If you're like, I don't know what that looks like for me, I want to give you one that's practical. Not just a bunch of cute drawing stuff, thanks for that, but something that's like practical. What is something you can do? And so I want to give you one, and it's a very easy step. It's not going to cost you a lot. It's easy to do. When there's a seat back in front of you, we put these cards. They're neighborhood degree cards. This is our nonprofit. We're in the middle of launching a nonprofit, building a community center, and the goal is to end generational poverty in our city, which seems like a lofty goal, but we're already watching it happen. Our 2 graduates that have degrees actually have the tools they need to move themselves and their families out of poverty. Already, generational poverty ends with them. We think that this is possible. It's not just lofty. And we have this dream for the community center where we have this kinder through college career pathway that supports whole families, that we get to see kids in our city reach their full potential because we think it'll benefit not just their life, but their future children, our ripple effect throughout our whole city for generations, we think is possible. And we want you to be part of it. Not because we want something from you, but honestly because we think that it will make your path better. And it'll help somebody else on their path as well. And so, if you fill out this card, what's going to happen is I'm going to text you 7-question survey just about you. Like, what jobs have you had? What hobbies? What things do you like? What do you want to do? Because there's lots of different ways to be involved. But what is your piece of that puzzle? What is your piece in this? And it might be something like, yeah, I could volunteer 3 hours a month and help a kid apply for college. Or maybe you're like, I have no time, but I could buy 5 pizzas and help you guys launch a club at Green Acres for junior hires. Or maybe you're like, well, I could give $20 or $200 a month to help build a community center. Or maybe you're like, I could give an hour and let a student interview me about my job to see if it's the right career for them. Like, your piece is different. There's lots of pieces to this puzzle. I could list off over 20 options. They're all on our website, but I don't want to list them off because they're not all going to apply to you. But what I think is possible is that there is a piece that's going to fit for you. And it's a piece that's going to actually bring you life and joy and fulfillment. And when it does that for you, I'm pretty sure it's going to do that for somebody in our city. It's going to bring them life and value and fulfillment too. So if you fill out this card, we're not going to guilt you into something because guilt doesn't work. All you're saying by filling out this card is, I want to be part of this. If you're just remotely interested sometime in the next year, and you fill this card out and fill out that survey, tell us about you. If there's an opportunity we think fits you, then we'll call you. And if it doesn't fit that week, whatever. You can tell us no, because we don't want you to feel guilty. We want it to be something that actually fills you with joy, so that we can lay down at night, like David said, and feel joy and peace and purpose. That's the goal. And we think that God has something for you in that. So last year, I needed an electrical engineer and an ultrasound tech for our students to interview, and I didn't know who to call. And I knew there must be somebody in this church that does those things, but I didn't know who. And this is our way of saying, there's a way we can network together. And there might be something where you would really enjoy. I just didn't even know it was possible. And our goal is just to plug you in to find that piece of the puzzle. And that it would bring life and joy and purpose to you and to people in our city. So that's the step. You fill it out, drop it in a basket by the door. Come see us at the neighborhood degree table outside if you have questions. We just think there's a second path, and that it's easier than you think, and that it really does make a huge impact on your trajectory and the trajectory of somebody else in our world. Would you pray with me? God, thank you that you are not cryptic and mysterious. That you are, but you also try to make it very clear, very easy to follow you, to do what you did, and that you want us to have a life that is meaningful and fulfilling, and that you offer to help us in that. God, help us be people that bring healing everywhere we go, and that you would heal us in the process too. And in Jesus' name, amen.